Hello students, welcome to week 2 for COM 420, Global Digital Engagement. This week we're looking at media influence and agenda setting, but we're looking at it in a larger context of global media influence and agenda setting. So we're going to look at some similar concepts you may have seen in other courses, and now we're considering how they apply within a global setting. As we look at the week 2 agenda, it's important to look at and see that we are reading chapter 3 and 4 of the text. We're watching 2 videos, one on Max McCombs on agenda setting. McCombs is the theorist behind the theory of agenda setting, so some phenomenal information from him on that. And we're also watching a video on the history of the UNSCO. You have discussion board number 2 due on Friday with your reply post due on Sunday, and your media case study number 1 due on Sunday as well. Please know that with media case study number 1, we do multiple ones of these throughout the semester. You do need to spend significant time before Sunday on the assignment. So what you'll be doing with your media case study is you'll be picking a news media outlet, Fox, Al Jazeera, BBC, ABC, any major outlet that covers world news. If you want to go with an international news outlet, that's fine, and that's actually encouraged. I do encourage you to get out there and look at some news outlets that we don't regularly see reported in the U.S. so you can see how they report the news. You're going to spend 72 hours looking at that outlet comprehensively. And what I mean by comprehensively is you need to keep track of all media coverage, television, online news, and social media to see what they're covering in terms of global topics. So what you're going to do is notate the top 5 news headlines within this 72-hour period and analyze those news stories and headlines, looking for trends and such and what's being reported by that particular news outlet. So for full credit, you need to keep track of all media coverage. You then need to determine which are the top 5 news headlines for that 72-hour period, provide an overview of the headlines across all media outlets within the organization. So when I say all media outlets within the organization, I mean, are they covering this on their social networks? Are they covering this on their online news? Are their blogs saying this? Is their website reporting videos of this? Is their television coverage reporting this? Some have radio stations involved with that. Are they also saying that? So keep track of all their media outlets within the organization. Conduct a content analysis of the top 5 headlines across all outlets. So if you've determined a certain headline is very important and you want to go with that as being a top 5, you're going to look to see what was reported on social media, what was reported on the television, what was reported on their website, what was reported on their blog, so on and so forth. Provide a brief synopsis of each headline as well as a story description so I can understand what exactly this story is about and why is it in the top 5. Also consider how communication is potentially influenced. So look at the news reports and tell me how this may be potentially influential on how it was covered throughout the different outlets within the news organization. Consider how hegemony and ideology and at least one media theory may have influenced the headlines for this time period. We're going to go through all of those concepts today, so you'll be well on your way to understanding how to complete that part. And then you're going to check to see if similar headlines were reported in competitor outlets. So if you utilize Fox, you should look at ABC or CNN to see, did they cover some of this as well, and confirm to determine how worthy was that news topic. And then lastly, you're going to provide a reflection of the learning experience on this. Your entire paper should be about 3 to 5 pages using APA format. When cover pages and abstracts and things like that, those do not count within the page count. So your cover page is not a page. It does not count as part of that 3 to 5 page count. That's 3 to 5 written pages. But do make sure you have your cover page headers, things of that nature, so we can be able to easily identify all the information. So that's your media case study. Discussion board number 2 asks you to conduct a content analysis of the UNSCO website. The link is provided in Blackboard. It's also listed here. A content analysis really examines the entire site. So what I want you to do is just spend some time looking at their website, reading some of their articles, watching some of their videos, reading the About Us section, and getting a good idea of who UNSCO is. It is discussed in the reading heavily this week, so you should already have a solid understanding. But now we're going to look at their website. We're going to look at the program 2 of the UNSCO, and program, it describes the role of communication as listed below. What you're going to do, so they say that communication in their eyes should stimulate development of research, it should further elaborate the concepts of the right to communicate, and continue the studies of methods for planning and programming. Once you've gone through the website, you're going to make sure that their website is in line with what the program 3 of the UNSCO describes as their role of communication, and then you're going to analyze one of the theme pages. If you look in Blackboard, I've highlighted how to get to a theme page. You're going to compare the theme to the general contents of the site and compare and contrast the site according to the information in Chapter 3 of the course text. So you're going to look at the theme page. You're going to see how it compares with the rest of the site, how it's in line with Program 3 of the UNSCO, and then how it compares to what the course text says about the UNESCO, I'm sorry. After that, you're going to determine if the site effectively utilizes at least one media theory, as well as identifying what that theory is used. If a theory is not used, then describe what type of media theory would be beneficial to integrate into there. And lastly, you'll provide a reflection of the theme review and its use and contribution to Program 3 of the UNESCO's site, and show how the Program 3 is useful in the process of global communication. So this sounds like a lot, but what you're going to do is write about 400 words telling me which theme you've selected, how this theme page fits to the general contents of the site, and then compare and contrast the site information and the theme according to what Chapter 3 tells us about the UNESCO. You're also going to bring in Program 3 and what their role and view is of communication for this organization, and provide a reflection of that as well. If you have any questions, let me know. Remember, this is due on Friday with reply post due on Sunday. Additionally, we're looking at ideology. So some of you have had a good, some good information about what ideology is. So I'm going to kind of refresh you and give you some things in case you're not aware of it, which is completely fine. So ideology, or an ideological perspective, really tells us this. Ideology is a system of meanings that helps define and explain the world and makes value judgments about that world. So our ideology is what we define and what we believe to be in a given context of anything, and we make value judgments based off that. So if your ideology is based off of a biblical perspective, then you're going to utilize the Bible and what the Bible says and what the Bible means on certain topics to help you define and explain the world and make value judgments about the world. Others utilize it in different ways, but that's just an example. So in media effects, ideology helps us determine realistic reflections on society, and is also concerned with what messages these images send about the nature of the world and how the world operates and how the world should be. So if we view our ideology as influenced by biblical perspective, then we're going to use biblical perspective in media to determine if media provides realistic representations of society, or if it is concerned with what these messages send about the nature of the world and how the world operates and it should be. So an ideology or an ideological perspective is your value system. It's how you determine and make value judgments and define and explain your reasoning on what you believe in the world and make judgments about that. Scholars often examine media images to uncover their ideologies by looking at reoccurring themes in media. Culture wars are huge. Hunter and Wolf spent a lot of time and determined that mediated images with differing or competing ideologies can create a war on culture within society. So if we see a reflection of what we believe a school should look like, and we see a picture of what somebody else believes a school should look like, and those ideas conflict, that can create a culture war. So these are things we're aware of and we've battled and we see regularly reported in media. Now we're just kind of putting some formal names to that. Hegemony deals with concepts related to ideology. So let's just briefly back up and remember ideology is related to concepts such as worldview, belief system, and values, what we believe to be, what our worldview is on this topic, and how we make value judgments about that. Ideology is concerned, again, with what messages these images send about the nature of the world and how it operates and should be. Hegemony really connects questions of culture, power, and ideology. So hegemony considers that a dominant group is exerting cultural and social control over another group, primarily through the use of media, by forcing culture, power, and their ideology on society. So hegemony is often referred to as power and is wielded at the level of the culture and ideological perspectives, not just through the use of force, but also through manipulation and media and things of that nature. So a dominant ideology or a dominant group, the majority group, will use hegemony or hegemonic devices, so media, to try to get across their ideological perspective on a topic. And it's a very big sentence to say that the majority group may use media to try to get you to believe what they want you to believe about a topic, and that's hegemony in its finest. It's oftentimes deceptive. It can also be persuasive. It's not always positively reviewed. As Gramsci argued, really, and he's kind of one of these leading forces behind hegemony, is that a ruling group, a majority group, can maintain power through force, consent, and combination of those two based off of an ideological domination. So utilizing ideological domination is when sometimes we see things reflected in TV and television shows that may not align with what you believe, but the majority believes that to be okay. That can be the use of ideological domination and ideas of hegemony and things like that. Of course, this can vary from person to person because we all have different belief systems that help make that up. However, we're looking at a majority group from this perspective. Agenda setting theory fits into this pretty well. So if we're looking at hegemony and ideology, we're looking at how media can be influential in positive and negative ways. We're looking at how a dominant group can use media to exert influence and control over others, and ideology helps us shape what we believe to be what things should be, how we believe a school should look, or how a bedroom should look, or things like that in a very trivial sense. Our ideological perspective on that, our value system, our belief system on that will tell us what we should think about that, and media has a huge influential role in that. Agenda setting, developed by McCombs and Shaw, was developed after there was a noted influence in North Carolina during the 1968 election. What it found is that media can set public agenda and discourse by not telling you what to think, but telling you what to think about. So today is what we see happen more than often is we don't see media professionals or news broadcasters or television shows or video games or movies or social media or whatever it is telling you you need to think this way. Rather, they get us thinking about what they want us to think about. So hopefully we can develop a favoring opinion towards them. So if something goes viral online, people aren't telling us what to think, but they are definitely telling us what to think about. Because now when something goes viral, a video or whatnot, we'll not only see the viral go video through our various social networks and be influenced by that, but we'll also be influenced by maybe seeing it on a news broadcast and them airing it saying, look at this media, it's viral video today and how viral it went. Now they're not telling us what to think, but they're telling us what to think about. We're going to go watch it. We're going to send it to so-and-so, and so on and so forth. So any media outlet can tell us what to think about by projecting and only leading with information they want us to think about. So they can be selective in what they portray in the news and things of that nature. This definitely hovers in some very ethical areas and unethical areas. It's one of the most prominent media effects theories. It tells us that there are media effects on society by media not telling us what to think, but they can tell us what to think about by choosing what to air, by choosing what ideological perspectives, and almost act as a hegemonic device and only promoting and putting shows out there that push one agenda or a couple agendas, and either way, whatever way you believe on it. This is really more applicable to news media. McCombs and Shaw developed this related to broadcast news and how news broadcasts were formatted. They couldn't tell you what to think, but they could say, we're going to get you thinking about this because we're only going to present this type of news about this topic. However, it is being recently been applied to social media and other forms of media and is now being regularly studied from a research perspective on television and film and things of that nature. Just to recap, we're reading chapter 3 and 4. We're watching 2 videos and we're completing discussion board number 2 that's due on Friday, as well as the replies due on Sunday, and we're completing media case study number 1. If you have any questions, just let me know. I look forward to interacting with you this week, and I pray you all have a blessed week. God bless.